My son was marrying the woman of his dreams. At least, that's what everyone kept telling me. At the rehearsal dinner, the night before the wedding, Tyler grabbed my arm during a slow dance with his grandmother and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Dad, I found something on her laptop. Don't let me marry her tomorrow, please." Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Victoria Chen had entered our lives 8 months ago. Tyler brought her to Thanksgiving dinner at my house in Austin, a sprawling ranch-style home on 5 acres that I'd bought when land was still cheap out here. She walked through my front door like she was appraising the furniture. "Mr. Patterson, your home is absolutely gorgeous," she said, her smile too wide, her eyes scanning the room with a hunger I recognized. "Tyler told me you were a consultant, but this place is incredible." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, practiced. The diamond studs in her ears were real, but her Chanel bag was a knockoff. I'd learned to spot the difference over the years. "Just Richard is fine," I said. "And thank you. I got lucky with the property market." She laughed, a musical sound that seemed rehearsed. "Luck has nothing to do with success, Richard. I tell my followers that every day." Victoria ran something called a lifestyle brand, which as far as I could tell, meant she posted photos of expensive things on social media and somehow made money doing it. She had 800,000 followers on Instagram. Tyler, my sweet, trusting son who'd become a veterinarian because he genuinely loved animals, was completely enchanted. During dinner, I watched her. The way she steered conversations toward money. The way she asked about my consulting work 3 separate times. The way she mentioned her business expenses and investment opportunities while gazing at the artwork on my walls. "That's a beautiful piece," she said, gesturing to the painting above my fireplace. "A Jasper Johns piece I'd acquired at auction 15 years ago." "Just something I picked up," I said. "I like how the colors work together." "You have good taste." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Tyler tells me you're retired now. Must be nice to have time to enjoy beautiful things." After they left, my housekeeper Maria found me sitting in the dark living room. "You don't like her," Maria said. It wasn't a question. "I don't trust her," I admitted. "But Tyler's 31 years old. He's a grown man. He needs to make his own choices. Even if those choices are mistakes." I thought about my own marriage to Tyler's mother, Sarah. She'd passed away from cancer when Tyler was 12. For 20 years, it had been just the two of us. I'd built my career, sold my company, and hidden my wealth so Tyler could grow up normal, so he wouldn't become a target. Maybe that was my mistake. I'd protected him so well that he never learned to spot predators. "Especially then," I said to Maria. "That's how people learn." But I wasn't as passive as I pretended. The next morning, I made a phone call to someone I'd known for 30 years. Frank Delgado had been FBI for 2 decades before starting his private investigation firm. We'd worked together back when I was building my company and needed corporate security. "Richard Patterson." Frank's voice was warm. "Haven't heard from you in years. What's wrong?" "Maybe nothing. Probably nothing. But I need you to look into someone for me." Quietly. I gave him Victoria's name. He promised to be discreet. The engagement came 2 months later. Tyler called me, breathless with excitement. "Dad," she said, "yes. We're getting married in June. I want you to be my best man." My heart sank, but I kept my voice steady. "That's wonderful, son." I'm honored. Frank's preliminary report had already arrived. Victoria's lifestyle brand was hemorrhaging money. She had $340,000 in credit card debt, most of it from trying to maintain an appearance of wealth she didn't have. Her apartment in Dallas was 3 months behind on rent. She'd been sued twice by former business partners. But debt wasn't a crime. Plenty of people made financial mistakes. I'd made my share when I was young. What concerned me more was the pattern. Victoria had been engaged twice before, both times to men from wealthy families. Both engagements ended abruptly, with sealed settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Her brother Marcus, who worked as her business manager, had a bankruptcy in his past and a restraining order from a former girlfriend. I kept this information to myself. Tyler was in love. He wouldn't believe me without proof. And maybe I was wrong. Maybe Victoria had changed. Maybe she genuinely loved my son. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted Tyler to be happy. The wedding planning consumed the next 4 months. Victoria insisted on a venue called the Willowbrook Estate, a renovated mansion outside Austin that charged $45,000 just for the rental. Tyler, who made a comfortable but modest salary as a veterinarian, couldn't afford it. "Dad, I hate to ask," he said, sitting across from me at a coffee shop downtown. "But Victoria has her heart set on this place. I was wondering if you could help with some of the costs. How much are we talking about?" Tyler pulled out his phone, showed me a spreadsheet. "The total is around $120,000. I can cover maybe $30,000 from my savings. Victoria's contributing what she can from her brand, maybe another $20,000. $70,000. He was asking me for $70,000. I looked at my son, his eyes hopeful and a little embarrassed. Tyler had never asked me for money before. Not for college, not for vet school, not even when he was starting his practice. He'd always insisted on making his own way. "You really love her?" I said. "More than anything, Dad. She's everything I've been looking for." I signed the check that afternoon. I also paid for the catering, the flowers, the photographer, and the honeymoon suite at a resort in Cabo. Final total, $92,000. Victoria sent me a thank you card with a $50 bottle of wine. The card was generic, the kind you buy in bulk. The signature looked like her assistant had written it. 2 weeks before the wedding, Victoria's brother Marcus started visiting my house regularly. Always with a reason, always with that same calculating look his sister had. "Richard, my man," Marcus said, settling into my leather chair like he owned it. "Victoria mentioned you might be looking for investment opportunities. I've got some ideas that could really move the needle for you." I smiled politely. "I'm pretty conservative with my money these days. Just bonds and index funds." "That's the problem with your generation, no offense." He leaned forward. "Money should work for you. I've got connections in cryptocurrency, NFTs, some pre-IPO opportunities that could triple your retirement in 6 months. I appreciate the thought, but I'm comfortable where I am." Marcus's smile tightened. "You know, when Tyler and Victoria get married, we're going to be family. Families should help each other out. Share opportunities." I stood, walked to the door, opened it. "Thanks for stopping by, Marcus. I'm sure you're busy." He left, but not before photographing my living room with his phone. He thought he was being subtle. He wasn't. That night, I called Frank again. "I need everything. Both of them. Deep dive. That's going to take time and resources. Whatever it costs." Frank's full report arrived a week before the wedding. It was worse than I'd imagined. Victoria and Marcus were running a con. They'd done it before, 3 times that Frank could document. Target a wealthy family through their most vulnerable member, build a relationship, get engaged. Extract as much money as possible before or during the marriage. Then either divorce with half the assets or, in one case, have the elderly father declared incompetent and take control of his finances. The last target had been a software developer in Seattle. After 2 years of marriage to Victoria, he'd lost his house, his savings, and nearly lost custody of his children from a previous marriage. The divorce had cost him everything. He'd tried to warn others, but the NDA he'd signed made that impossible. I sat with the folder for a long time. Pictures, bank records, court documents, sworn statements from people who'd lost everything to these two. And Tyler was going to marry her in 7 days. I could confront him, show him the evidence, but Victoria would claim it was all lies. She'd twist it around, make me look like a controlling father trying to ruin his happiness. Tyler might believe her. He might choose her over me. I'd lose my son either way. Or I could wait, let things play out, hope Tyler saw the truth on his own. Neither option felt right. In the end, I did something I'd learned in business. I gathered information, I positioned my pieces, and I waited for the right moment to act. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Willowbrook Estate, a preview of tomorrow's wedding. 150 guests, champagne flowing, fairy lights strung through the oak trees. Victoria was radiant in a white cocktail dress, Marcus hovering nearby like a shark smelling blood. I watched Tyler move through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. He looked happy, really happy. And for a moment, I doubted everything. Maybe Frank was wrong. Maybe the pattern was coincidence. Maybe Victoria loved my son, and I was just a paranoid old man who couldn't let go. Then I saw Tyler's face change. He'd stepped away from the crowd to check his phone. Something he read made him freeze. His expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, horror. He looked up, scanning the room until his eyes found mine. He crossed to me, moving through the crowd with mechanical precision. "I need to talk to you," he said. "Now. Alone." We found a quiet corner near the kitchen, away from the noise. "What happened?" I asked. Tyler's hands were shaking. "I left my laptop at Victoria's place last week. She's been using it because hers crashed. I just got a notification that someone accessed my cloud storage from her IP address." "Your cloud storage?" "I keep everything there. Personal files, financial records, passwords." His voice cracked. I checked the access logs. She went through everything. Bank accounts, investment records, your address, your property records. She even searched for Richard Patterson, net worth. My blood went cold. Victoria knew. She'd found out who I really was. "There's more," Tyler continued. He pulled out his phone, showed me a text conversation. "She forgot to sign out of my laptop's message app. This is between her and Marcus from yesterday." I read the messages. "Marcus, did you find it?" "Victoria. Better than we thought. Dad's loaded. Really loaded." "Marcus. How much?" "Victoria. His company sold for $80 million. He's been hiding it, living like a regular person on purpose." "Marcus. Holy shit." "Victoria. I know. This is the biggest score we've ever had. Tyler has no idea. After the wedding, we start phase 2. Get power of attorney over the old man. Memory issues, safety concerns. You know the script." "Marcus. What if he fights it?" "Victoria. Then we get Tyler to help. He loves me. He'll believe whatever I tell him about his father's mental decline. We'll have full access to everything within a year." I read it twice. My hands stayed steady, but something shifted inside me. A cold fury I hadn't felt in decades. Tyler's eyes were red. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I brought this into our family. I trusted her." I pulled him close, hugged him the way I had when he was a boy. "This isn't your fault. You fell in love with who she pretended to be. That's on her, not you. What do I do? The wedding is tomorrow. Everyone's here. Everything's paid for." I looked out at the crowd. Victoria laughing with her friends. Marcus checking his phone. 150 guests expecting a celebration. "Do you trust me?" I asked. Tyler nodded without hesitation. "Then go back out there. Act normal. Get through tonight. Tomorrow morning, leave everything to me." He wiped his eyes. "You have a plan." I smiled. The smile I used to wear in boardrooms when I was about to close a deal that would change everything. "Son, I've been planning since Thanksgiving." That night, after the guests had gone and Victoria had retired to her bridal suite, I made 3 phone calls. First, to Jessica Martinez, my attorney. I'd known her for 20 years, trusted her completely. "I need you at the Willowbrook estate tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring a court reporter if possible." "Richard, what's going on?" "I'm stopping a wedding, and I'm going to need legal protection when I do." Second, to Frank Delgado. "I need everything you have compiled into a presentation. Documents, photos, statements. Ready by 8 a.m. You're going public. They tried to destroy my son and put me in a home. They're going to learn what that mistake costs." Third, to my contact at the Austin American-Statesman, a business reporter who'd covered my company's sale 15 years ago. "Sandra, I have a story for you. Exclusive. But you have to be at the Willowbrook estate by 10 a.m. Bring a photographer." Sandra was silent for a moment. "This is about the mystery tech entrepreneur who disappeared after the IPO, isn't it? You're about to find out who Richard Patterson really is." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my study, surrounded by the evidence of my hidden life. The Jasper Johns painting worth $2 million. The first edition books on my shelves. The stamp collection in the safe, worth $3 million alone. The investment portfolio that had grown from $80 million to over $120 million in the past 15 years. For 2 decades, I'd lived modestly to protect Tyler, to give him a normal childhood without the complications of extreme wealth, to let him become his own person, make his own choices, earn his own success, and someone had tried to use that against us. Tomorrow, I would stop hiding. The morning of the wedding, I arrived at the Willowbrook estate at 8 a.m. Tyler was already there, pale but determined. He hadn't slept either. "She doesn't suspect anything," he said. "She texted me sweet dreams and a heart emoji last night, like nothing happened." That's how con artists operate. They believe their own performance. Jessica arrived with a paralegal and a court reporter. Frank came with folders full of documentation. By 8:30, we had commandeered a small conference room near the main hall. "You're sure about this?" Jessica asked. "There's no going back once you make it public." "I've been sure since Thanksgiving. I was just waiting for the right moment." The ceremony was scheduled for 11 a.m. Guests began arriving at 10. Victoria appeared at 10:30, radiant in her wedding dress, surrounded by bridesmaids. She saw Tyler across the lawn and waved, blowing him a kiss. He waved back. His hand didn't shake. I was proud of him. At 10:45, I walked to the front of the ceremony space where guests were already seated. The wedding coordinator tried to stop me. I ignored her. I took the microphone from the string quartet's stand. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please?" 150 faces turned toward me. Victoria froze halfway down the aisle, her father's arm still linked with hers. "I'm Richard Patterson, father of the groom, and I have an announcement that cannot wait." Victoria's smile flickered. She looked at Marcus, who was standing near the back. His expression shifted from confusion to alarm. "This wedding is cancelled," I said, immediately and permanently. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria's father dropped her arm, stepping away in confusion. "What is this?" Victoria's voice was high, panicked. "Tyler? Tyler, what's happening?" Tyler walked toward her, stopping 10 feet away. "I know everything, Victoria. I saw your messages with Marcus. I know about the plan, the power of attorney, the mental decline script, all of it." Her face drained of color. "Baby, I don't know what you're talking about. Your father is confused. He's old. He's obviously having some kind of episode." "I'm 64 years old," I said into the microphone, "and I'm perfectly lucid, but let me clear up any confusion about who I am." I pulled out a document from my jacket pocket. "My name is Richard Patterson. 20 years ago, I founded a software company called Data Secure. We pioneered encryption technology for financial institutions. In 2005, I sold that company for $80 million. Murmurs swept through the crowd. Victoria staggered backward. "For the past 15 years, I've lived quietly, invested wisely. Today, my net worth is approximately $120 million. The artwork in my home alone is worth over $5 million. And I did all of this while pretending to be a modest, retired consultant, so my son could grow up without being a target for people exactly like you, Victoria." Marcus was edging toward the exit. Frank stepped into his path, arms crossed. "Frank Delgado, Private Investigations," Frank said cheerfully. "We have a lot to discuss." Victoria tried one more performance. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to the guests. "This is insane. Tyler, your father is having a breakdown. He's paranoid. He's making up stories. I love you. I've never wanted anything except to be your wife." Tyler pulled out his phone, read the text messages aloud, every word she'd written to her brother, the plan, the timeline, the phrases, biggest score and power of attorney, and full access. The crowd's sympathy evaporated. People began pulling out phones, recording. "Those are fake," Victoria insisted. "He fabricated them. His father has money. He probably hired hackers." Jessica stepped forward. "I'm Jessica Martinez, Mr. Patterson's attorney. We have documentation of 3 previous marriages where Miss Chen and her brother Marcus ran similar schemes. Sealed settlements, non-disclosure agreements, victims who lost everything. Would you like me to continue?" Victoria's father stepped further away from his daughter. Vicky, is this true? Dad, don't listen to them. They're lying. I never sold any software company. I never signed any NDA. Victoria's mother began crying. Her brother Marcus made a break for it, but two guests, friends of mine from my business days, blocked his path. The police are on their way, Frank announced. I recommend everyone stay where they are. The next few hours were chaos. Police, statements, Victoria screaming at anyone who would listen, Marcus trying to claim it was all a misunderstanding, guests milling about, some horrified, some fascinated, all recording everything for social media. Sandra, from The Statesman, arrived with her photographer. I gave her a brief statement and promised a full interview later. By evening, the story was online. Tech millionaire stops wedding, exposes con artist scheme. Tyler and I drove home together in silence. The evening sun painted the Texas hills gold and purple. I'm sorry, Tyler finally said, for everything. You have nothing to apologize for. I should have seen it. The signs were all there. I was just so desperate to believe someone could love me that I ignored everything that didn't fit. I pulled over onto the shoulder, turned to face my son. Tyler, you're a good man. You're kind. You're trusting. You're generous. Those aren't weaknesses. Those are the best parts of being human. She took advantage of that. But don't let her make you ashamed of who you are. He nodded, wiping his eyes. Why didn't you tell me about the money? All those years? Because I wanted you to become who you are. A veterinarian who loves animals. A man who earned his own success. If you'd grown up knowing we were rich, you might have become someone different. Someone like them. I would never. I know. But I wanted to make sure. Over the next several weeks, the full scope of Victoria and Marcus's scheme became clear. Frank's investigation uncovered 6 previous victims across 4 states. Bank fraud, identity theft. One elderly man in Florida who'd lost his home and spent 2 years in a care facility, placed there by a court order Victoria had obtained through falsified medical documents. The Texas Attorney General filed charges. Federal prosecutors got involved when the interstate fraud became apparent. Victoria and Marcus were arrested, released on bond, then arrested again when they tried to flee to Canada. Jessica handled our civil case with surgical precision. We sued for $5 million, knowing we'd never collect. The point wasn't money. The point was public record. A judgment that would follow them forever. A warning to anyone who searched their names. Tyler testified at the preliminary hearing. He was calm, clear, devastating. The judge denied bail after hearing the evidence. Victoria and Marcus would await trial in custody. 3 months after the canceled wedding, I received 2 letters. The first was from Victoria, written from the Travis County Jail. Mr. Patterson, I've had time to think about what I've done. I know you won't believe this, but part of what I felt for Tyler was real. I made terrible choices, and I hurt people who didn't deserve it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I was becoming, and I'm grateful you stopped me before I destroyed another family. I hope Tyler finds someone who deserves him. The second was from Marcus. I don't expect you to read this, but I'm writing it anyway. My sister and I learned to survive by taking from others. Our parents were con artists too. It's all we knew. That's not an excuse, just an explanation. You did what you had to do to protect your family. I respect that. I wish someone had stopped us years ago. Maybe we would have learned a different way to live. I showed both letters to Tyler. What do you think? He asked. I think people are complicated. I think they did terrible things, and I think they're going to prison, which is appropriate, but I don't have to hate them to want them punished. Are you going to write back? I thought about it for a long time. Then I wrote 2 short responses. To Victoria, your apology is noted. Tyler deserves better than what you offered, and I hope you spend your sentence becoming someone capable of giving that to others. The doors to our lives are closed permanently, but the door forward is always open if you choose to walk through it honestly. To Marcus, your explanation doesn't excuse the harm you've caused, but I understand that patterns learned in childhood are hard to break. Use your time to learn new ones. When you're released, be different than you were. That's the only redemption that matters. 6 months later, Tyler and I attended a charity gala in Austin. The event raised money for elder financial protection, a cause I'd become passionate about for obvious reasons. My donation was a Jasper Johns lithograph worth $800,000. During the speeches, a prosecutor told a story about a recent case, how a con artist ring had been stopped by a father who'd been underestimated because of his age. No names were used, but people in the room connected the dots. Afterward, Tyler introduced me to someone, a young woman named Elena, a veterinary surgeon from San Antonio. She had kind eyes and a warm laugh, and when she looked at Tyler, I saw something genuine. "Your father is quite the local legend," Elena said to Tyler. "The mystery tech millionaire who brought down a crime ring." "He's just my dad," Tyler said. "He worries too much, cooks too much pasta, and always beats me at chess." "That's because you get impatient," I said. "Chess rewards the long game." Elena smiled. "I'd love to hear more about the long game sometime." Tyler caught my eye. I nodded slightly. Yes, this one seemed real. That night, after the gala, I sat in my study, surrounded by my collection. The paintings I'd hidden for years, the books, the stamps, the investments that had grown quietly while I pretended to be ordinary. For 15 years, I'd hidden to protect my son. Then someone had tried to use my hiding against us both. Now everyone knew who Richard Patterson really was, and instead of making us targets, the truth had become our protection. No con artist would ever underestimate us again. No predator would mistake our kindness for weakness. The local news had called me the Quiet Protector. The Statesman had run a feature on financial fraud prevention, using our case as an example. 3 other families had reached out, sharing their own experiences with Victoria and Marcus, grateful that someone had finally stopped them. Justice isn't always about punishment, I'd learned. Sometimes it's about prevention. Sometimes it's about making sure the same harm doesn't happen to someone else. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years. Marcus got 8. Their assets, what little they had, were liquidated to pay restitution to their previous victims. The elderly man in Florida got his home back. Tyler kept the engagement ring, not as a memento of Victoria, but as a reminder. He planned to have it reset, the stones used for something new, a necklace for Elena maybe, if things continued the way they were going. I approved of her. She'd visited my house 3 times and never once asked about the artwork, the property value, or my investment strategy. She asked about Tyler's childhood, about Sarah, about whether I needed help in the kitchen. "That's how you know someone's real," Maria told me. "They're interested in who you are, not what you have." The letters stopped after my responses. I didn't expect to hear from Victoria or Marcus again, and that was fine. Some chapters close completely. You don't need to reread them. 1 year after the canceled wedding, Tyler and I sat on my back porch, watching the sun set over the Texas hills. He'd proposed to Elena the week before. She'd said yes. The wedding would be small, just close friends and family, held in my backyard. "Dad," Tyler said, "thank you." "For what?" "For protecting me, for being patient, for letting me make my own mistake and then helping me fix it." I sipped my bourbon, felt the warmth spread through my chest. "That's what fathers do. I thought you were just a consultant. All those years, I thought we were comfortable but normal, and the whole time, you were this legendary businessman, hiding in plain sight. I was just your dad. That part was never an act." He nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "You know, Victoria asked me once why you didn't seem impressed by her success. The followers, the brand, all of it. I didn't have an answer. It's because I've seen real success. Building something from nothing, creating value that lasts. What she had was illusion. Impressive from a distance, hollow up close. How do you tell the difference?" I thought about the question for a long time. Real success doesn't need to convince you it's real. It just is. The people who genuinely have something don't need to prove it. They're too busy doing the work. Tyler smiled. Like a guy who sells a company for $80 million and then spends 15 years pretending to be a retired consultant. Something like that. We sat in comfortable silence as the stars appeared one by one. My son was happy, truly happy, For the first time since that terrible rehearsal dinner, he'd learned something about the world, about trust, about the difference between appearance and reality. And I'd learned something too. Hiding to protect the people you love has its limits. Eventually, you have to show them who you really are. Not to impress them, but to give them the truth they deserve. Victoria and Marcus had tried to cage a lion, thinking they'd found a tired old man too weak to fight back. They'd spent months calculating, scheming, imagining themselves clever enough to outsmart a simple retired consultant. They never suspected the consultant had been waiting his whole life for someone to make that mistake. The best revenge, I realized, wasn't destroying them. It was living well, openly, and making sure they could never do it again. That's justice. That's enough. Through the window, I could see the lights of Austin glowing against the night sky. Somewhere in that city, Victoria sat in a prison cell, reviewing transcripts from her trial. Marcus was in a different facility, taking classes toward a GED he'd never bothered to complete. They were living with consequences, but they were living. That's grace. The collection in my study was worth millions. The properties I owned across Texas and New Mexico generated passive income I'd never spend. But the real treasure was sitting beside me on the porch, planning a wedding to a woman who loved him for who he was. That's the victory that matters. I finished my bourbon, stood up, stretched my old bones. You want to come inside for dinner? Maria made her famous enchiladas. Tyler grinned, the same grin he'd had as a little boy. I thought you'd never ask. We walked inside together, father and son, the past behind us, and the future waiting patiently ahead. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.